Yeah, so this is me just expanding on my video from yesterday and talking about how the law of attraction also ties in with actual biology, with science. And this is how your body works. So your life is programmed. Your life is creating itself from a program. The program is your subconscious mind. Your present awareness is the conscious mind. Now there's been huge advances in the medical field and there's new information that proves the law of attraction. So let's speak on the concept about genes. Is like many people believe that genes control their lives. So people would think of genetic traits that run in their family, like diabetes, Alzheimer, and cancer, and they expect one day, like, oh, I'm going to get that. So they think they're going to be a victim to heredity and develop that same disease. And if your belief is that you're a victim, then that belief is going to be translated into biology, and you physically going to become a victim. So about 50 years ago, there were only a handful of scientists who knew what a stem cell was. A stem cell is an embryonic cell in your body that has the potential to develop into many different types of cells, like muscle cells, brain cells, liver cells, blood cells. They're like a repair system for your body. So check this out. You can get one stem cell and you can put it into a petri dish, and they'll divide every 10 hours. So first you got one, and you got 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on. After a week, you're going to have like 50,000 stem cells. But this is the most important aspect. They all came from the same parent. So we got 50,000 genetically identical cells. And now here's the experiment. You divide all those identical cells into 3 different dishes. Cells are like fish, so they need a fluid. And the fluid you put them in is their environment. And these scientists, all they do, fam, is change the composition in each environment just a little bit in each dish. What happens is in dish 1, they get muscle cells. In dish 2, they get bone cells. In dish 3, it's another different environment. They get fat cells. Let me get my beer. So when you ask the question, what controls the fate of the cells? They go genetics. But wait, they were all genetically the same. So the fate of the cell wasn't determined by genetics, it was determined by the environment, you feel me? So now people are probably gonna be like, all right, so what does it have to do with me, or do with the law of attraction, or do with my mind? So go look in the mirror. And what most people think when they look at themselves is like, look at me, I'm a single human being, I'm a single organism. But there's a slight misperception there. How could you be a single entity when you're made up of 50 trillion cells, you feel me? These cells are the living entity. You, by biological definition, you're a community of cells. So you're basically a skin covered petri dish with 50 trillion cells inside. And your fluid for those cells, or the culture medium, is called blood. The chemical composition of the blood is what determines the fate of the cells. So it's just like in a plastic dish. If you change the environment, you change the cell. So who or what controls the composition of your blood? Your brain, of course. So now the question is, what chemicals should the brain release into the blood? You got to go to the next level up, the mind. What do you perceive? What's your perception? What do you see? What are you looking for? So let's say you're looking at someone or something you really love. Your mind perceives love and translate that through the brain. Your brain will release chemicals and hormones such as like dopamine, which is the feel good, the pleasure chemical, oxytocin, the bonding chemical, vasopressin, and so on, you feel me? Growth hormone, you feel me? It enhances the growth of your cells. You ever see someone when they're first falling in love with somebody, like they're glowing, like they shine, like they're so happy. They got so much energy. But let's take that same exact person, instead of seeing someone that they, or something that they love, let's have them see something that puts them into fear or worries them or stresses them. That person will not release the same chemicals as someone who is feeling love or someone who's grateful or thankful. When you live in fear or perceive something that's threatening, you release stress hormones, hormones that control your immune system. You activate inflammatory agents and other things that get you ready for fight or flight, you feel me? So if you take the chemicals released by a brain in love and put them in a plastic dish, the cells grow and they divide excellently, you feel me? It's beautiful, you feel me? But what about the chemicals from a brain in fear? The cells stop growing, they stop dividing, they go into defense mode, they close up, you feel me? Fear kills. The mind is the interpretation of the world. The brain releases a chemistry to match that interpretation, to coordinate 50 trillion cells to live in that world you're creating. That's why you gotta love yourself. You're made up of all cells. Learn to love yourself. You're made up of nothing but cells. And that means every cell in your body, they all vibrate on the frequency that you put them on. On the reality of the vibration that you're giving off, that's what you're going to attract. Your emotions, your perceptions, your beliefs. These are all the sources of the chemicals that end up controlling the genes, that end up controlling your vibration, your physical reality. This is why your subconscious mind must be reprogrammed, bro. Because we run the same programs and habits every day, and most of these programs are self-sabotaging habits. We just stabbing ourselves, really. Negative thoughts, negative inner speech, all these negative things we do. The subconscious mind is also the habitual mind. It beats your heart without you actively having to do it. It causes you to breathe in and out automatically. It drives the car for you to work every day. That's why sometimes you can drive somewhere and forget the whole trip you made there. You just wake up when you park like, hold on, dang, I just drove here. You forget the whole drive. Now, a lot of programs we got, they came from childhood, and really these programs, they contain the fundamental programs of life that we acquire from our parents, our family, and the community between like the last trimester of pregnancy and the first 7 years of our life. So the first 7 years of a child's life is like downloading how to become a member of a family, of a society, or a culture. You feel me? By strictly observing other people. That's all they do. They just soak everything up like a little sponge. Between when you're first born, the last trimester of pregnancy, and the age of 7, you are a sponge. You're a literal human sponge walking around soaking up everything you hear and see, bro. For real. And it's the equivalent of hypnosis, if you think about it. That's why when a kid says a bad word, we all look around at everybody and wonder who he got the bad word from. Like, where'd you learn this from? And then you think like, oh, it's because he been around so and so. You feel me? You know where he got the bad word from because so and so talks like that. The first 7 years contain the most learning you will ever do in life. That's why a child can effortlessly learn like 2 to 3 languages. More than that, maybe 4 or 5. A child can learn like 5 languages if they really want to, for real though. And you can do this in this time because, like I said, you're a sponge. You're soaking up everything. You're going through a state that's the same as hypnosis. So the original programs of the subconscious mind are not yours. The conscious mind is yours. That's the creative mind. All the programs of the subconscious mind is everything you learned as you were growing up. The issue is that the conscious mind can travel in time. You feel me? So ask someone what they're doing next week, and they'll mentally leave the present moment and they'll start visualizing future events. Ask someone what they did last week, and it's the same result. They're going to go into the past and think about what they did last week. So I could be walking down the street with you and then ask you to picture yourself on the beach. Now you start thinking and visualizing yourself on the beach, and you're not paying attention to the present moment. But this is where the functions of the subconscious mind come in handy. This is where they're needed because you aren't present in the moment, so you go into autopilot. So it's not like when I have you start picturing yourself on the beach, it's not like you have to stop walking because you're not there no more. It's not like you have to stop walking beside me because your mind left the present moment. Your subconscious will continue to move your legs for you and take the steps for you and walk down the street for you while your conscious mind is off handling a different task. So when you aren't mentally in the present moment, you default to the subconscious. So then you begin to play the programs of the subconscious. And the programs of the subconscious aren't really yours. They came from other people. And most of the programs are disempowering and limited. You play those programs because the conscious mind is engaged with thinking, and that's 95% of the time. So 95% of your behavior is invisible to you. You are only operating from the conscious mind 5% at the time of the most. 5% of the time at the most. That's how much you're operating from that mind. So your life is actually a reflection of your subconscious programming. If you don't know what programs were instilled in you, then just stop for a minute, take around and take a look at your life. That's the program. The things that work smoothly for you, they always go well for you. The things that you're real good at, you got programs to allow that. Like good basketball players, you see how they effortlessly I cannot say that word today. Effortlessly, how they just play basketball, they let it roll right off their fingers. It's nothing to them. They dribble, they throwing it all in between their legs. They got programs that allow that. Anything that you're good at, there's a subconscious program. That's why they basically go into a flow state. They don't gotta consciously think while they're playing. They just go into a autopilot mode and they just go. You feel me? It's like that. Anything you're real good at, family, you can go into a flow state with. You got a program to allow that. The things you struggle with, the things that work against you, the programs that work against you, you got programs for that too. Like if you always have struggle keeping money in your pocket, there's a program working against you, bro, that you created. If you always have a hard time keeping a girl or keeping your relationship, that's because you got a subconscious program. You sabotage yourself. You sabotage your own relationships. You feel me? So what can you do to change these habits? Like, you got to create new habits to replace those old habits and instill them into the subconscious using repetition. You feel me? It's just like how you learn the ABCs. You learn them by constantly repeating them. A, B, C, D. You ain't just go from A to Z your first time. No, you got a little further and a little further. A, B, C. Then you A, B, C, D, E, F. Then you A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You going a little farther, a little farther. You count from 1 to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, at first you used to get stuck at 8. Then eventually you go to 9. Then eventually you learn 10, 11, 12. You go farther and farther and farther. And then after you do anything enough times, it becomes so natural that you can do it on autopilot. You feel me? After creating habits of thinking good thoughts, of being grateful, of expecting good things to that you desire to manifest, just expecting good things to happen to you all the time, period, that'll become natural to you if you make that a habit, if that's what you start focusing your conscious mind on.